Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play this video and talk about things that are going on to better explain what's going on and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. Here we go.
This is a critical incident community briefing about an officer-involved shooting that occurred on December 15th, 2022. The information in this briefing is based on a preliminary and ongoing investigation. The briefing includes video from in-car cameras, surveillance footage, photographs, dispatch audio, and other evidence known to date. The shooting is the subject of 3 separate and independent investigations. The Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department will conduct an investigation into the actions of the suspect and the officer. Once completed, the investigation will be submitted to the Santa Barbara County District Attorney's Office for review. The Santa Maria Police Department will also review the incident to evaluate and determine if the actions of the officer adhere to the department's policies and procedures. No conclusions will be made until all the facts are known and the investigations are completed. A word of caution: the images and language you are about to see and hear may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. The incident began when a woman called 911 to report she was being carjacked by a man.
Adam 83, Adam 82, both units off area for a possible 215 on East McLaney. 83, 82, we're trying to get further. The RP is crying hysterically, not answering any questions. The RP said something about a gun and the subject possibly trying to take her vehicle. We're trying to get further.
A short time later, a patrol officer spotted the car near the intersection of Cook and College. A pursuit ensued. During the pursuit, the car struck another vehicle, causing significant damage to the left front tire. Nonetheless, the driver continued to try to elude police. A short distance away, the man hit a second vehicle as it crashed at the corner of Cook and Railroad.
Westbound, pretty heavily damaged on the driver's side. It's not going to last long. TC 711, TC 711.
As an officer approached, he saw the suspect holding a gun to his own head. A few moments later, the suspect climbed through the driver's window with the gun still pointed at his own head. When he lowered the weapon from his head, an officer-involved shooting occurred.
He's trying to climb out. He's climbing out now. We have to go to his head still.
The wounded suspect, still armed with a handgun, ran toward a business in the 500 block of South Railroad, with officers in pursuit. At a nearby business, the suspect put a handgun to the neck of an employee, but the employee disarmed him. The victim then ran out of the business while the suspect attempted to hide inside the building.
Hey!
Officers surrounded the business and were able to arrest the man after he crawled out and complied with their instructions. Officers immediately began to render medical aid. The man was identified as 24-year-old Francisco Solano Gomez. He was charged with carjacking, false imprisonment, assault with a deadly weapon, and burglary. At the time of his arrest, Gomez had an outstanding warrant for his arrest.
Of course.
Gomez was hospitalized and underwent surgery. He was released from the hospital 2 days later and taken into custody at the Santa Barbara County Jail. Police recovered from the scene what later turned out to be a pellet gun. Our understanding of the facts and circumstances may change as additional information becomes known. As this incident shows, police officers must react to unpredictable and potentially dangerous circumstances in fractions of a second. It's tragic whenever there is an officer-involved shooting, for the families of those involved, for the officers, and for the police department. For information about our policies and procedures, please visit.
Okay, so this is one of those critical incident videos where they do it like a newscast in a way. They play some snippets of footage from the incident, but they don't let it play for its entirety or anything like that. They just play some snippets in the background while someone talks. Still gives some decent information, but not the biggest fan of how this one's structured. So at the very beginning of this call, it is a carjacking call. And It doesn't, I don't think that they specified that at the very beginning he was reported to have a gun while committing this carjacking, but the fact that when he came to a stop, he pointed his gun to his head and then tried to point a gun to someone else, it makes me believe that if he had that on him, he was probably using that during the carjacking. So if that information was readily available at the beginning of this call, then 110%, I believe that these officers should have got their rifles out and ready. The carjacking in of itself, let's say it was not reported that he had a gun, that he just, let's say he just ripped the door open and started ripping the person out of the car. That in of itself is still a violent fucking act. That's a high-risk call right there. That still dictates that a rifle needs to be brought out to deal with this very violent individual. Unfortunately, this is one of my big chief complaints when it comes to videos like this, officers neglecting to get rifles out. Now, when he does come to a stop, we do eventually see an officer approach with a rifle. At the very beginning of it, there's an officer out with his pistol. He's right there. Presumably, he is coming out of this vehicle right here. So he's in hot pursuit. Boom, comes to stop. He dismounts. He has pistol in hand. If he did not get his rifle out before going to this call, then that's how this plays out. He cannot quickly dismount that rifle from its locked mount and then put it into play. The quickest thing for him, if that rifle is locked in its mount, is to dismount with a pistol in his hand. Is that the best thing to be bringing to a gunfight? Hell no. If you know you're going to a gunfight, bring a rifle and bring your friends with rifles. So, at the onset of this call, carjacking in progress, at the onset of that, as soon as he received that and he's going to this call, he should have stopped his car, got his rifle out, turned the sight on, charge it, sling it around his neck, and then proceed to call. It doesn't take that long to do it. But in this instance, where he comes to a complete stop and the rifle's not out, it does take forever in this instance to get that rifle out, because it takes too many seconds to get it out when this dude is boom right there. You have to immediately get out and go with what you got. And for this case, it's this pistol. But if he would have had that rifle out while en route to this call, and it was charged, slung around his neck, then when he came to a stop, he would have been able to dismount from that vehicle with a rifle in hand. So that's why I always advocate, as you get these hot calls coming in, just stop. Stop what you're doing. Get your rifle out. If it's in the cab, that's super fast for you to be able to do it. Hit the dismount button or the disengagement button. Take it out of the mount. Charge the handle. Turn the sights on. Flip the caps off the sight if you have sight caps on there. And sling it around your neck. If it's in the trunk or the cargo hold, that's what's going to take the longest, because you have to physically get out of the car, go to the back, and get it out. But even then, it's not going to take you more than a minute. 30 seconds, probably at most, to perform that task. At most. So if you get the long gun out at the beginning, then when it comes to a sudden abrupt stop like this, you've already got it out. It's already charged. The sights are already turned on. You're able to dismount and put a long gun into play. But if you don't do that, then when you come to a stop like this and the rifle's in its locked mount or it's in the trunk, it might as well be in fucking China. Because you're not going to be able to get it out in time, even though it just takes a few seconds to get it out. It's way too damn long in this moment right here.
When he lowered the weapon from his head, an officer-involved shooting occurred.
He's trying to climb out. He's climbing out now. We have to go to his head still.
Boom. Now somebody comes back up with a rifle. And it looks like the first guy based off some of the stuff I can see on the belt and what the side of him looks like. Could be wrong, but it looks like the same person. So this might not be his vehicle. So he makes a movement with his arm. And if I play it multiple times, oh, that's a good freeze frame. If I play it multiple times, it looks like he just takes it from the side of his head and just moves it up to under his chin. But that's only easily discernible when I replay it multiple times. And I get to sit here on my couch watching this and not in fear for my life. This officer does not have that luxury. He's not like you or I in this moment right now, in a safe environment with no fear whatsoever and the ability to hit rewind multiple times. He is in the moment. What he sees is what he has to act on in that instant. So he sees this guy's arm with the gun move from its position to the side of his head and leaves the side of his head. So he's observing what's happening. He's orientating himself, looking through sights. He's probably made that decision to go ahead and shoot. So he is focusing on, most likely, the red dot. He is placing that red dot on what he is perceiving to be center mass. And he is dead focused on that. And he is making his trigger go down to the trigger and squeeze a round off. And it could be that the clarity of this arm and this hand with the gun is not in deep focus. It could be maybe slightly blurry to him. Because when he made that sudden, rapid movement with that gun hand, with the gun in it, he decided it was fight time. So he's going through that process, fires a round off, and hits the guy. Like I said, it's only under our conditions of being in a safe environment, no fear, being able to hit rewind multiple times, that we can see this guy has simply just moved the gun from the side of his head to what looked like under his chin. But for him, he doesn't have that luxury. He can't hit rewind. He can't slow time down. He has to go on what he initially sees. And what he initially sees is this guy moving the gun away from his head. What's he going to be doing with that gun? Don't know. You have to assume the worst. And the fact that this guy ends up going and trying to take a hostage, and the fact that he doesn't just run towards this officer to get blasted, tells me that he was not really 100% committed to wanting to die. He was just doing this to buy time, to keep them away from him. Oh, I'll put the gun in my head and they'll think I'm suicidal. They won't come near me. And then I can look around and see where I can run to. That's exactly what he's fucking thinking. He's trying to buy time to figure out how he's going to get out of this shit. Looks like the round hits up maybe high and right to the chest area. Possibly. You can even see his hand go up towards that area. So it's unfortunate that that round wasn't a couple more inches to the right. Had that round been a couple more inches to the right, it would have most likely hit maybe the aorta and or gone completely through and even hit the spine. Now, I will, when I talk about rifles versus pistol, I'll talk about their terminal ballistics and how much more devastating they are. But shot placement is still key. Even though a rifle cartridge outperforms every day of the week any pistol cartridge, shot placement still matters. He hit into the thoracic cavity, but he did not get that center mass hit. So without inflicting an injury to this person that would render them physically incapacitated, he was able to run away. Now, in this instance, as he's running and still armed with a gun and trying to get away, under Tennessee versus Gardner, I 110% believe that this officer would have been justified in shooting his ass as he ran away, because he still got the gun in his hand. But he doesn't. Why? Maybe he just doesn't feel comfortable firing at a moving target with possible occupied structure in the background here. And we can't see very well past what's here. I can see what looks like a tree right there past his head, but these bright ass lights kind of create a photonic barrier and we can't see past this. Looks like a street light up here maybe. If he had a better backdrop and it was safer for him to pop a few rounds at him, maybe he could have taken those shots. Maybe he could have taken those shots. But he could be thinking about risk management and knowing your target and what's behind it, and knowing that what's behind him is occupied structures, and his rifle round is capable of punching through walls very easily.
Suspect, still armed with a handgun, ran. The wounded suspect, still armed with a handgun.
Yeah. Couldn't see the street very well. Looks like
the wounded suspect, still armed with a handgun, ran toward a business in the 500 block of South Railroad, with officers in pursuit. At a nearby business, the suspect put a handgun to the neck of an employee, but the employee disarmed him. The suspect put a handgun to the neck of an employee, but the employee disarmed him. The suspect put a handgun to the neck.
Fucking disarmed him. So there are some martial arts, hand-to-hand techniques out there to disarm a person when they're in, close proximity to you like this. They're last-ditch effort kind of things, in my opinion, because the likelihood of you being shot is pretty damn high, in my opinion. It's not like the movies where the person's able to reach out super fast with their hand, touch the gun, push the slide back, use their pinky to hit the slide release catch and pop it out, and then rip the slide forward and it comes off the frame. That's pure Hollywood bullshit. Some of these funny little videos you'll see on social media where someone's doing a gun disarm thing and they see it being demonstrated, and then it, turns to them being out in real life, and they attempt it, and then boom, they're in the clouds up in heaven. That's what's most likely to happen if you attempt a gun disarm and you don't do it right. You're gonna probably fucking die. But disarms can happen, and that is something that you should, if you want to make that an option, that's something you should practice for. Train under the watchful eye of a competent instructor, and then practice it. Like, you have to be there physically with someone and them teaching you those techniques. Like, you should not be watching just a YouTube video and be like, oh, okay, I can do this. No. You need to get in person with an instructor, get a blue gun, go through those techniques multiple times. And after that, you should practice it, because hand-to-hand skills are very, very, very perishable. And that's about as far as I want to talk about disarm techniques, because I don't want to talk about some of the procedural technique things and try to describe it without any good visuals. But just know that it's a pretty risky move, especially when in close contact like this and you're turned from the person. Things could go south real quick, and you have to weigh your your situation there. You have to weigh the factoring things. Is all this person wanting is a wallet? If so, give them the fucking wallet. Like, don't try to do a gun disarm just to protect your damn wallet. You can cancel your credit cards, right? A lot of banks have theft protection clauses and stuff like that. So even if they do go spend $500 on something, you could be able to recoup that money. The bank will just put it back in your account for you. That's a process, but it's something that could be done. Driver's licenses, your IDs, all that shit can be replaced. And while we're talking about wallets, just a real quick snippet, you shouldn't be putting things like your Social Security card in your wallet. Leave that in the safe. Really, all your wallet needs is your ID, some money, maybe credit card or debit card. That's it. So if that's all they want is your wallet, give it to them. They want your watch, give it to them. Now they start walking you towards an area like a cooler, restroom, little closet. That could be fight moment right there for you, because you don't know what the hell they're going to do once they get you inside this little room. If they start walking around to the back, what are you going to do when they walk you around to the back or walk you to this room? They're going to let you go? They could be taking you to execute you so that you're not a witness. So that's when you may say, you know what? If I attempt this gun disarm and it doesn't work and I could die, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to die anyway as soon as we get back to this fucking meat locker and he pops me in the head to get rid of me as a witness. So, damned if I do, damned if I don't. Kind of a dead man walking right now, so what do I got to lose? Scenarios like that, for me, would be when I would be thinking, all right, I might risk this gun grab or this gun disarm. Because the way it's looking, I'm probably going to die anyway. Luckily, it's a pellet gun, and the dude just rips it out of his hand. Now, I would say that because this guy was shot in the right side area, and it looks like he's holding in the right side, maybe that impacted his ability to have good grip strength on that gun. And and it was easily taken from him, or he just wasn't expecting it. He was expecting this dude to be fully 100% compliant and just didn't have that good of a grip on it. And action beats reaction, so this guy was able to grab it and rip it before this dude was able to tighten his grip on it and trying to keep it from being taken.
Of an employee, but the employee disarmed him. The victim then ran out of the business while the suspect attempted to hide inside the building. Hey! Officers surrounded the business and were able to arrest the man.
And he's still... So this guy... Let's back it up. So he's still holding the gun in his hand. Not the greatest option in my opinion, because he is not in a uniform. Right? All officers treat people who are not in a uniform as a potential threat. So if you do ever disarm a person and the police are coming, drop that damn thing. There's no reason for you to be holding on to it. Throw it out in the parking lot. Because you don't want to put yourself in a scenario where you just saved your fucking life by taking a gun from a criminal, and then an officer coming around the corner and having to make a split-second decision. Are you a good guy? Are you a bad guy? Holy shit, you're right next to another cop, and you're holding this gun. You're a potential threat. Bang, bang, bang. Threat neutralized. That would suck. To save your own life from some dirtbag criminal, and then boom, an officer come around the corner, think that you're the bad guy because you're holding a gun, you're not wearing a uniform, you don't look like a cop, they don't know the circumstances that just occurred, they don't know that you just saved your own life by taking this gun from someone, and they assume that you're the threat, and they have to make a split-second decision and then shoot you. That would suck. So after you disarm that person and the police are getting there, drop it. Drop it and soccer kick that motherfucker if you have to, if that person is nearby and you don't want them to grab it. Or just pitch it. Just fucking launch it like a frisbee. And if you don't want to do that, if you're afraid that if you throw this thing and it hits the ground and may go off, and you feel that it could be safe to put it in your pocket because there's nothing in your pocket, then put it in your pocket. If you got a bunch of junk in your pocket, don't throw it in your pocket because you don't want to run the risk of shoving that gun down into your pocket and then your keys hit the trigger as you're shoving it in there and then discharge around into your leg.
Officers surrounded the business and were able to arrest the man after he crawled out and complied with their instructions.
So this guy has a lot of weapons around him now. I think they could have got him to crawl a little bit further out.
With their instructions. Officers immediately began to render medical aid.
So I think this is the first officer who actually fired around.
Began to render medical aid.
He's got a rifle.
Aid.
I don't see anything that indicates others have rifles.
Officers immediately began to render medical aid.
With the exception of this guy walking in. So that's a problem to me, that there's only 2 rifles, or what appears to be only 2 rifles out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 officers. That's not a good ratio.
The man was identified as 24-year-old Francisco Solano Gomez. He was charged with carjacking, false imprisonment, assault with a deadly weapon, and burglary. At the time of his arrest, Gomez had an outstanding warrant for his arrest.
Outstanding warrant for his arrest. And I guarantee that the dude had probably, within the last 5 years, was probably either released from a prison or released out of a jail, and his more previous charges that he had he been sentenced or fully prosecuted to the full extent, his ass would have been locked away for a long time, and he never would have been out to do this shit. Would not be surprised to find out if that's the case. Not surprised at all that he had an arrest warrant out for him. This is what the modern criminal justice system looks like. Coddling and pandering to career criminals, giving them chance after chance after chance after chance, and little slaps on the wrist. It is time for justice reform. It is time to get hard on crime. It is time to start locking away violent offenders and repeat offenders for long periods of time. If they cannot get their shit together in society, after 3 tries, then fuck them. Lock their ass away for a decade. Why should we, the good citizens, be subjected to the fear that these criminals create? Why should we be subjected to becoming victims to these criminals? We should not be put in positions where we become easily victimized by these repeat offenders, by these violent offenders. We should not have to live in fear of these miscreants of society. We should feel a little bit safer knowing that people like this are locked away or going to be locked away for a decade or more. And if they continue to act stupid while they're in the prison, want to do their gang bullshit, add more time. I have no problem whatsoever having people locked away for life if they just commit too many crimes and cause too many problems while in prison. Generally, locking people away for life is reserved for people who commit murder, stuff like that. I think we should open that up to more people. Repeat offenders. Do a 3 strikes rule, and 3 strikes, boom, you go away for 2 decades. Or 3 decades, depending on the crimes involved. Or, hey, you know what? Screw it. The rest of your life. Because what we're doing right now is obviously not working. What we're doing right now is giving little slaps on the wrist. Tell them you only do a couple years and you'll get out. And while they do their time in a prison. See, here's the thing that people don't realize about jails and prisons. Jails and prisons have a very high turnover rate. They hire anybody. Basically, the requirements to be hired to work in a jail or a prison is you got to have a fucking pulse and the ability to write something on a check sheet or sign a document. It doesn't even have to be fully legible. If you can put chicken scratches on a piece of fucking paper and you got a pulse, you've got a job working in a jail or a prison. There are a lot of dumbass people, lazy, dumbass, pussy-ass motherfuckers who work in a jail and a prison. Now, I'm not saying everybody is, but there's a lot. And they will let these criminals do whatever the hell they want to do. They just want to clock in, clock out, go home. Do an 8, hit the gate. There are some places where the inmates run the facility. So this idea that people are doing hard time, that's a myth. That's bullshit. There may be some places, there are some places where it's not like that. The place really does suck for the criminals. But there's a lot of places, they got it made. They've got it made. There's jailers and prison guards who'll fucking bring food and candy into them. Bring them cigarettes, drugs. So on top of having longer sentences for people, there also needs to be some reform within the correction side as well. There needs to be some very big changes made. Moving on.
At the time of his arrest, Gomez had an outstanding warrant for his arrest. Gomez was hospitalized and underwent surgery. He was released from the hospital 2 days later and taken into custody at the Santa Barbara County Jail. Police recovered from the scene what later turned out to be a pellet gun.
Even looking, before they even said pellet gun, I legitimately thought that this was a real gun. It looks legitimately real. Even with the paint right here rubbed off and this looking metallic. This looks 100% real. So absolutely, this clearly illustrates that the officer who fired his gun was 110% justified in doing so. Because he legitimately feared for his life. This thing looks real. And at a distance and at night, and there's flashing, strobing lights, makes it even more difficult to tell whether or not the thing is real.
Our understanding of the facts and circumstances may change as additional information becomes known. As this incident shows, may change as additional information.
So we see from the security footage that it looks like they've already got his shirt ripped open and they're performing medical treatment on the guy. One is to be a courteous thing to avoid a bunch of blood in someone's building. I would just drag his ass out to outside. That way, the business owner here, the employees, ain't got to deal with a bunch of blood all over their floor. So number one, pull them outside. And two, it's going to be easier for the paramedics to get to him outside versus trying to pull their stretcher all the way through here and try and get it into that tight little spot right there. It's a whole lot easier when it's a nice big wide open spot. The only benefit they have of being in here is the lighting. It's very well lit. But they could very easily go outside this bay door right here and have a couple officers hold flashlights. Because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably 8 officers here. Not all 8 officers are going to be hands-on with this guy doing medical treatment. So 2 or 3 can definitely stand there holding flashlights, illuminating the guy's body.
Information becomes known. As this incident shows, police officers must react to unpredictable and potentially dangerous circumstances.
All right, that's it. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.